I got nipples all up in my mouth hole. Oh. All right. Mm. 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 I wonder if that's still a thing. Mm.
This is an Electrolux Ergo Rapido Lithium vacuum cleanery battery-powered thing, which of course came out of a trash today actually. And the issue with it is that the only thing it does when trying to turn it on is shout at you and give you a red LED. And I've noticed that the fan motor seems to be completely seized in it. You cannot even turn it by force. So the guy at the trash place said the previous owner had said that, yeah, the battery's bad in it, but I don't really think that's the case because you can hear it making a rather valiant effort at actually turning around. There's an actual little physical thump in the unit as it's trying to turn the motor, but nothing's happening. And I did notice while cleaning the brush thing out that it might have had a bit of a dog pee odour to it, nothing major, but it might be the case that this has gotten liquid damage in some way. But more likely about that, I would think that it's gotten just something trashed into the fan assembly mechanically. So we're going to have to take this thing apart and see if we can rectify it, because this thing, when it looks very fresh, this thing, it seems like one of those things that you'd give your grandma and she'd never use, and this has just been sitting around for years and years. It's an 18-volt lithium, apparently, so you wouldn't expect it to have been sitting around for too long, because I don't think 18-volt lithium stuff has really been popular for a long time, and we even have a QR code for all the smartphone-y fancies. So let's just try and rip this thing apart. I've been into a couple of older models of these before. Shouldn't be too difficult. Shut up. So what's the actual model number? NV180LIBRC. Do we have a date code? Nothing obvious. ZB3013. Perhaps 2013. I don't know, it looks new about that. Yeah, let's just try and get all these screws out and see if we can make any sense out of it. There seem to be talks 10 or 15. Alright, 6 screws, and it seems to be getting it somewhere. There we go. And to show some extra dust collecting, and what do we have? Well, for starters, these seem to be just standard 18650s. Those are brackets. 18 volt, 1450 milliamp hours. So these are probably pretty standard tool style high current lithiums. And that's a pretty tiny motor. Looks reminiscent of a drill motor. Electronics look pretty high class, actually. Some kind of processor going on there. Seems to be an ST of some sort. Yeah, but I've got to get this thing apart. Hey, this seems to be made out of rubber. Pretty nice build quality of this thing, actually. I'm quite impressed thus far. I have a BMSE logic board thing, just pops out with 2 screws there and a couple of little snappers back there, and it pops out a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lithiums, as you'd expect, and the motor peel off that thing.
You're so slow.
With this thing, because we've got a pretty hardcore rub mark there, and some pretty hardcore rub marks.
Oh, someone dropped
Get the voice. Alright, let's give this a go.
burnt motor. I see, we don't care.
Let it rub. I'm a normal. Actually, using a motor which
Fucking half an hour.
goes up in smoke. The harsh noise may seem to be a bit wonky to move off this way.
Oh, shut up.
It says the top station or something like that, or if I can just hook 21 volts across it. But let's see if it sucks or if we've failed. Even got headlights. I've got a bit of an experimental pinout going on here. Machine on this unit, the lowest volts from the circuit is here, and so that's what I'm going to assume to be ground. And that pin, as well as this one, are paralleled up and going to this pin on the base suction thing. So I'm pretty certain this is just ground for everything. This pin and this is going to be some kind of sense pin for something. And this pin on the base is going straight to this pin. So I'm assuming that's where the actual positive charge lead goes. And this one's got a high voltage on it, and it's going off to somewhere inside this thing. So this is probably what's powering all these stuff over here in the brush head. So I'm going to try and just apply plus and negative about 21 volts or so, harshly current limited to this, and see if it goes up in smoke. Alright, so I've got 21 volts current limited to something like 100 milliamps connected to the belly of the beast. So let's see if it'll do anything. Googling later, I found out that the original charger for this seems to be just a standard issue DC wall water to 25 volts and 500 milliamps. So we've now got 25 volts going into this. So if we're lucky, all the charging smarts are just already situated in there. We won't even have to think anymore about it. So let's give it a go, 25. Yeah, and that's drawing a healthy 450 milliamps. I'd say that's a pretty good win. Now I just need to put a DC plug on this because I've got no plans for buying an actual charging station for this. Alright, so here's the inside of a base unit. It also comes apart quite easily, although you have to take off the vacuum heady thing in order to separate it mechanism that we've got going here, just plastic against plastic. Well, let's just to check out the wiring here. So the face terminal for the buttons, and it's a bit curious how they've done this because the buttons just run off this 2-conductor wire, and one of them goes straight to ground, and the other one goes to this terminal, which also goes down into the head. So I figure this probably is some kind of actual active data line, because they've got two buttons going on the same line, and they probably have head identification going as well. So this thing probably handles the detection of the actual vacuum head and the buttons at the same time. So if you were to disconnect this,
Come on.
a more traditional way to connect.
No.
Anyway, with this, I'm just gonna solder on a little DC plug to. I've actually gone a more traditional route. So by just putting out. But let's see. That's all the smart vacuum units. The little LED board. Find out, but that's certainly cryptic. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
DC plug
knew it.
properly mounted. Had to do it on the underside since it just wasn't feasible mounting it on the other side since it's basically just a giant handheld vacuum cleaner mount. But there it is. Shouldn't obstruct anything. These DC plugs are really nice because you can basically just thread an M12 hole, screw them in and fill up with hot snot, and they're never going to go anywhere. So just run some Cat 5 around here, around there, and just uglily piggybacked it onto the old charger leads. So that should be pretty okay. I just need to figure out how to get it back together with the slack. There isn't really room for any kind of connector, so it's going to be a bit of a bother, but I think it'll be okay. Right, so everything mounted back together. And we've got something hooked up into our new charge plug, so let's just flip the switch and see if it'll do anything. That looks pretty okay. Yep, that's looking happy. There you go. Now, I wonder if this thing is going to charge over 24 volts, because that would make getting a new power supply for this quite a bit easier. Yeah, it's going a bit slower, but it seems to work. So I can just use some generic 24 volt supply to recharge this thing. It's probably going to work fine up to a couple of volts per 25 as well. Yeah. I'd say 27 or so is probably a decent upper limit. Haven't checked any data sheets or anything, but it seems to be happy enough. So let's see what this switch thing is supposed to do. Nothing if you do it like that. Let's just see if this all works. Medium power. I just kind of did something with it, how it's driving the motor down there, but I've got no idea what it's trying to accomplish. Perhaps the drawing is a bit hard in order to clean the brush, because that's obviously blowing a blade onto the brush. I probably don't want to do that at full force. So there you go. Electrolux, what's it called? Ergo Rapido Lithium fixed. Thank you for watching. Cheerio.
Hi, welcome to my playhouse. And today, I'm still on vacation and I have one of these weird videos what I'm just actually doing. I did show this on Patreon, but I found this vacuum cleaner here on the side of the road in Aarhus, where I live. And it works. And I thought it was pretty cool because it goes into this bigger vacuum cleaner. So I have a handheld vacuum cleaner that goes into a bigger vacuum cleaner. And I started the video without you because I've been cleaning out a bit of hair here. This is some nasty shit. Oh, depending on, I'm sure this long hair came from a very pretty woman, but in the vacuum cleaner, it's kind of disgusting. And was just about to be cleaning the filter and stuff and clean the vacuum cleaner because, as you heard, it still works. By the way, this was the brushy thing where all the hair came out of. That was a job. I needed the scissors over here to cut that out. So we're just going to be doing that in this video, so you can skip ahead if you want to see something else. So I have a bucket for this nastiness. There. We will empty out this, all the trash. It seems to be washable, so I don't know. Well, that's just a release mechanism to get this out of. Okay, no problem. I think this could need a good wash. It's full of disgusting crap. And the filter here. Oops. If you haven't found out how to clean this, I could definitely see why this is just going into the trash. So we need to get this filter out of there. I think I need to look at this. Maybe there is an explanation. Looks like it's washable. It's kind of shows on the drawing that you can wash this. But how do you take it apart? Maybe just violent. Yep, works. I will go and try and wash this. This part, and this part. Okay. To the washing. Seconds later, which is of course a very, very bad lie because this took me about 10 minutes to get this as clean. I found out this filler is actually cleanable. I got most of it out. Yeah. It's still nasty. I'll do this again. Okay, it's not gonna get perfect. Did this go this way or did it go the other way? It did not go that way. Okay, so it went that way. And there are some clickety things. There, clicks into place. And this filter goes on top of that. There. And they go into the top part. Should really dry this off. But, now we have it. Not good as new, but clean. I think the motor must have seen some action, so I think I might want to go and take this apart. There's 4 screws here, so let's get a screwdriver and have a look inside of this. This says that it's a 12-volt DC NIMH, so the old battery technology. So we might just also have a look at that. Screwdriver. Okay, I came down into the basement for a screwdriver and realized how much nicer and cool it was down here. So we're just going to take this apart down here. It's what? Security talks. You shouldn't have. Okay, it's not security talks, it's just talks. Seems there's one in the handle as well. Oops, there we go. Okay. That's a weird setup. Just look at how the batteries are put in. It's just regular rechargeable batteries and they're 1,300 milliamp hours each. And there is like Oh, how many are there? It's very easy to check though. And it has a temperature sensor there. Has the motor assembly. It doesn't look bad at all. I don't think we needed to take this apart. Let's check the motor here. Is it possible to go in there? It has a rubbery thing. I think that's all good. Okay, so don't think we need to do anything here at all. It's clean. Okay, I was looking at this and I couldn't. It says that it's 12 volts over here, right? So I was counting and I can only count like 7 batteries. And to get up to 12 volts with these regular AA batteries, they're each 1.2 volts, so you would need 10 of those to get up to 12 volts. And I could only count 7 over here. But then I realized they have hidden 3 in the handle down here as well. I didn't see those, but there are also 3 batteries there. So I do believe this would be very easily upgraded to lithium-ion cells. But as it is working really well right now, you heard it, we can probably... It works very well. It's no reason.
We have to pivot given the sheer infectiousness of this virus.
Ontario's move to join several other provinces limiting PCR tests to those medically vulnerable or working in high-risk settings means case counts will be even more underreported.
If you have symptoms of COVID-19, you should assume that you have COVID-19 and isolate.
Another option, if you have them, take a rapid test. But in much of the country, that rapid test will go uncounted. Albertan Jarvis Schmidt got a positive rapid test result Boxing Day.
I remember someone saying something about, like it's good to have these records on hand.
But no province tracks rapid test positives. Vancouver Coastal Health wants people who test positive at home to complete a form online. Alberta says people can alert their family doctor. And Peterborough, Ontario is asking residents to report results using a QR code.
A piecemeal effort is not going to be as good in terms of the ability to have a good sense of actually how many people are infected right now. What's the predicted burden that's going to lead to for hospitalization? And when will we be through this?
There is international precedent for local reporting. The United Kingdom has been asking people to submit positive and negative rapid test results the last 9 months.
The best data that we've had about the COVID pandemic has been from the United Kingdom, and that's been because of their strong data analytic framework. They have data on cases linked to hospitalization and vaccination, and that is world class.
And at the individual level, there's concern not having any medical record of a confirmed case could cause people trouble down the line.
Will disability insurance companies accept those when later on people are looking at long-term disability for benefits and for access to services? Will those self-reported results be accepted? We don't know.
Uncertainty in a pandemic that continues to throw curveballs at Canadians. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
Taking balls to the face. We wouldn't have this problem.
Good afternoon, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. Today we have Dr. Morrison here, and also Marion Dowling, our Chief of Nursing for Health PEI, is with us online. PEI has seen an increase in the number of cases in the last 10 days of COVID in Prince Edward Island. Most are all associated with the new Omicron variant, which we are coming to know to be highly transmittable. However, as Dr. Morrison will speak to in a few moments, We are seeing, for the most part, mild and moderate symptoms for those who are vaccinated and contract the virus, which is a positive sign. Most cases to date are reporting mild and moderate symptoms such as congestion, cough, sore throat, and fatigue, which we know proves that the vaccine is doing what it should be doing and protecting us from serious illness. Dr. Morrison has also talked a lot about this being a time of transition. And part of that transition will be talking about more perhaps about the severity of cases and the overall health impacts as opposed to just the case level in general. But I'll allow Dr. Morrison to talk more about that in a moment. Just with some of that in mind, one of the impacts that we are most likely to see in the coming days and weeks may not just be in the form of hospitalizations, but in absenteeism. As more people test positive and as well as their close contacts needing to isolate to do their part to stop the spread of the virus, we're going to see some absenteeism around all parts of Prince Edward Island, and that's something we're trying to get prepared for and to be ready to address and to assure that essential services are maintained in our province. We have activated an integrated response team made up of senior officials from CPHO, Health PEI, and other government departments to ensure that government programs and services are not disrupted over the coming weeks, days, and months. This planning includes prioritizing essential services such as programs to vulnerable islanders, ensuring payments and support programs are administered without interruption, all the while ensuring that the safety and well-being of both islanders and our public service are maintained as we continue to offer these important services. We have asked each department to renew and enact their business continuity plans in the last few days, as well as to identify staff who could be redeployed to essential service areas across government so that we can maintain these services for islanders. As well, all government employees who can are and will continue to work from home. To limit the spread inside of government and beyond. At this time, no essential services have been impacted. The majority of public services being asked to work from home, as I said, where possible, and where in-person work is required, the same measures we've had in place at the beginning of this pandemic and throughout are being asked to continue to be emphasized, that being the cohorting of staff, maintaining physical distance, and mandatory masking in workplaces and public spaces. Earlier this week, we had to make some necessary changes to our testing procedures and protocols, similar to what we've seen with every jurisdiction across the country. Right now, our clinics are limited to testing in three main categories: individuals who have symptoms of COVID-19, individuals who are close contacts of a positive case, and individuals who have tested positive on a rapid test. These changes will allow us to target our testing to those who need to be tested. I want to reiterate the importance and need of getting tested if you have any, and I mean any, symptoms of COVID-19. I want to touch for a moment as well on rapid tests. The rapid tests are being distributed at our points of entry, at our testing clinics, and at Access PEI centers in the province where testing clinics are not available in their communities. PEI has been using rapid tests for months at our points of entry, mostly the ID Now rapid tests, but also at vulnerable settings such as long-term care, congregate living settings, schools, jails, all of those settings that are vulnerable in the face of outbreaks. We have made these tests readily available in the past number of days. Based on the level of transmission in our province, we will continue to do this targeted approach. We have confirmed that the Government of Canada will provide approximately 300,000 additional tests, rapid test kits in January. But as a provincial government, we have also been working to secure another 300,000 for the month of January through private suppliers. We have also engaged other government employees to provide assistance and support and help answer some questions and assistance with public health as it pertains to contact tracing. Almost 80% of the cases in PEI are either related to travel or are close contacts. So the longer we can maintain appropriate contact tracing, the quicker we feel we'll be able to curb the spread of COVID-19. So it's an all hands on deck approach to try to assist public health in any way we can. Expanded vaccine clinics as well is something I'd just like to touch on briefly. Vaccines have helped shield us from the most severe outcomes of this virus, and we know that will need to continue. I know Marion is on the line, and she will talk a little bit more about our mass vaccination clinics, but they are being started up in the coming days. They will be in Summerside and Charlottetown as before. The mass clinics and pop-up clinics will be key to keeping our population safe, and I encourage all of those to book for their booster or for their other vaccines if they haven't had those yet, because vaccines have really helped us to this point. They've helped stave off serious illness, and we need that to continue. I also want to thank Minister Lawrence MacAulay and our federal colleagues at the Department of Veterans Affairs, who have distributed a notice to registered nurses with their department on PEI to offer assistance in expediting the rollout of booster shots by volunteering to assist at our mass clinics. This is so much appreciated, and I'd like to thank those who have already offered their help with their booster rollout, and we expect those numbers to increase in the days ahead. Also, just want to talk briefly about the government response and our programming. Since the beginning of this pandemic, we have consistently said that our government will be there for Islanders to do what we can for as long as we can and to support them through these very challenging times. Over the last few days, Cabinet has met and approved a variety of programs and support services to assist Islanders. These programs include, but aren't certainly limited to, reinstating the $500 emergency payment for impacted workers. This program will be retroactive to December 27th and will provide those who have seen a 25% or greater reduction in their income a one-time payment of $500. Application for this program will be open immediately today online. The program provides immediate relief for those impacted while they may await benefits from other programs that we can mention a little later. Islanders who are not able to work for less than 50% of their scheduled shifts because they're sick, because they may be self-isolating or awaiting test results, will be eligible to be paid through their employer through the COVID-19 Special Leave Fund. This fund is active now and can be accessed immediately through your employer. That's reigniting a program that we had earlier in the pandemic. Islanders who are not able to go to work for more than 50% of their scheduled shifts are eligible for federal programs such as the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, the Canada Recovery Caregiver Benefit, and the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit. For those individuals who do not qualify for the Canadian Worker Lockdown Benefit, for example, because they do not fit into certain parts of the criteria, who may be self-employed, for example, the Department of Economic Growth, Tourism and Culture will be launching the Emergency Income Relief Program, which will provide $300 per week for those impacted by the reduction of income. For those who qualify for any programs that I just listed, it is also important to note that they can still qualify for the one-time emergency payment of $500 to provide immediate support. For those who are self-isolating, staying home because they have symptoms, who might need assistance with food or other essentials, the Department of Social Development and Housing has established a partnership with 211 to provide support to these individuals while they are isolating. Anyone who needs assistance with essentials such as groceries, the dropping off of supplies, home heating assistance, or anything at all can call 211 and they will be connected with the appropriate officials to provide these supports. In addition, the Department of Education and Lifelong Learning and the Department of Social Development and Housing have worked collaboratively to provide children across the province with a modified school lunch program, school food lunch program next week while children are at home. Registrations will open today, and there will be 2 deliveries made to participants' homes next week. Each delivery will provide 3 meals for those registered, and more details will be released this afternoon. And all of these programs will be live and online in the very short time ahead today. I know this is a lot of information in a short time, but this information, as I say, will be available online, and we feel it's important for Islanders to know that we're trying to do as much as we can, as fast as we can, to help those who might be impacted. In closing, I want to again say that I reiterate that although we are seeing high numbers of cases.
You guys are funny. Really good. This is really hilarious. I'm gonna get banned for this. Oh my god, I'm gonna go. This is great. Can't wait. Let's hear it.
If they don't follow the rules, if they flaunt the public health measures, then that will prolong this particular wave of the pandemic.
After Quebec Premier François Legault announced new restrictions in place as of New Year's Eve, including a curfew and restaurant closures, some say these measures and staying home are necessary, while others say it's concerning.
I don't think there was any other way to get out of this, because if you look at the projections, if this continues for much longer, we will eventually, we will very shortly overwhelm the healthcare system and make it so that if you get sick, you won't have a bed if you need it.
As for restaurants, dining rooms are closing till further notice, but takeout still permitted.
We are very afraid of what will come for the next few weeks. We believe that closing our dining room is the worst of the situation. We just hope that there will be compensation for the food that we will give. We won't lose it. We will give it to employees, or give it to food banks or to charities. But we will need to have some compensation on that.
Our charter that protects our rights does allow the government to restrict it if they do so in a way that's reasonable and justified.
Some online say they aren't happy about the new restrictions. One person saying, "We tried this already twice, it's not working," while others are for the measures. Another saying, "We need to help our system and do our part." 100% agree. For the curfew, if you're out between 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. and do not have a letter from your employer, one can be fined $1,000 to $6,000, an extreme measure, Legault says, for an extreme situation.
We're not going to ticket our way out of the pandemic.
Yeah, we are. What are you talking about?
Has relied on, fines and sort of a law enforcement approach a fair bit during the pandemic, and I don't think it's, I don't think it's been successful from a public health perspective.
You know what I also don't think has been very helpful?
To obey
all the
rules by putting those kinds of measures in place. But I guess we'll see sort of how enforcement goes.
Your goal is really to stay home, to limit your contacts with other people, because this is still a virus that spreads person to person. So if you don't come into contact with other people, your risk of getting COVID is essentially zero.
In Montreal, Pamela Pagano, City News.
Yo, where the fuck do we live again? Because I think
our experts tell us that there's a risk that we won't be able to treat all those who need it in the coming weeks. I know we're all tired, but it's my responsibility to protect ourselves from this.
We're not tired at all.
This is why I'm announcing new restrictions starting tomorrow. Restaurants will have to close except for deliveries and takeout. Private gatherings in home will now be prohibited, except for caregivers and for people living alone. I'm also announcing a curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. starting tomorrow night. Unfortunately, all indoor sports will have to stop. Places of worship will have to close except for funerals limited to 25 people, and teleworking remains mandatory. School, cégep, and universities will remain closed until January the 17th. Regular daycare will remain open and school daycare services will remain open, but only for essential workers. I also have a message for the people who work in our health system. More than ever, Quebec needs you to provide health care to those who need it.
And recruit all
We ask everyone who can to come and help your colleagues. We also have a shortage of employees in stores, including essential ones. This is why we've also decided to close stores for the next 3 Sundays. This will help shops that are short of employees. I also ask everyone to get their 3rd dose of vaccine as soon as possible. That makes all the difference. I know that the restrictions are difficult, and I know there's a lot of anxiety.
Lawyer's mad about your fucking
If you're not feeling well, it's important to ask for help. We have to take care of each other, but I still want to wish all Quebecers health and happier news for 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You brought my
You can have an appointment, but it's gonna be in a couple days. And most of people, when you want an appointment, it's like right now. You just like you learned that you were in contact with someone with COVID, so you do want it now. Another record day of new COVID-19 cases in Quebec, with more than 14,000 reported Thursday, as many of Quebec's COVID-19 testing sites like this one continue to be pushed to their limits. And the lines may have grown even more because Quebec's online platform to make an appointment for a test was down for almost a day, resulting in more people lining up at walk-ins and waiting hours, possibly deterring others from getting a test, leaving case counts underreported.
We really have our gross underestimate of what is actually going on in our community. But even based on those gross underestimates, the hard metric is that we're seeing hospitalizations. And so whether that's going in through a PCR test or a rapid positive test, people are getting infected and they are landing up in the hospital.
Hospitalizations in Quebec surging towards 1,000, and Quebec's Public Health Institute is projecting 1,600 to 2,100 hospital beds could be occupied due to COVID-19 in the next 3 weeks.
Lockdowns with curfew do dramatically decrease transmission. And the question is, do we need to do that now? It would be nice to say that we don't. None of us want any of this. But, there may really be no alternative in the short term.
The Quebec Health Ministry notes only people experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and who do not have access to rapid tests should visit a testing center.
Yesterday, my parents went to the Hotel Dieu, but there was supposedly a whole thing with the system went down, and that's why when they went there were people in line still from their 11 o'clock appointment. So they made an appointment there, and they were like, "No, I can't do this. I'm not waiting 3 hours for my appointment."
And they're gonna ask you even if you're in the sans rendezvous with no appointment line, they're still gonna triage you if you have 2 positive rapid tests done already, or you're very symptomatic, or you're a healthcare worker. If you're not any of the above, you're still gonna either wait 5 hours or be sent home.
Montrealer Olivier Drouin, who has been tracking COVID-19 cases in schools for more than a year, added to his platform on covidécolequebec.org for individuals to self-report their positive rapid tests, whether in school or the general population.
Parents were told by the government there's so many cases we cannot detect anymore or test anymore. So if you have a positive case, assume that it's positive and just stay home. But the problems was that these positive cases were what I call orphans. So they were not declared officially by the government. So you had a lot of thousands of people that are orphans. They have a positive diagnostic that nobody knows about.
As Quebec is reporting a 28% positivity rate in their testing, experts are calling for reinforcements.
We are where we are now. And where we are now is that the pace of the virus is outrunning the pace of our protective measures. So then we have to ask ourselves, well, then do we augment
or enhance our protective measures.
In Montreal, Felicia Adams, City News.
Yep.
Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off today. Right now on Morning News Now, put to the test. New COVID quarantine guidelines by the CDC raising questions this morning. Some of the nation's biggest school districts update their own policies, opting for testing over isolation to keep kids in class.
Schools have been incredibly safe. We want a smooth return to school. We want our kids in school. We want to make sure they're safe. We think this approach is the right way to do it.
This morning, new COVID cases and hospitalizations keep going up. Our team of correspondents is here to break it all down. Plus, we'll check in with a doctor from one state that just reached 1 million cases. Travel trouble, another day of delays and cancellations, not just at airports, but on the road. A 1-2 punch of COVID and extreme weather. We'll show you the conditions that are leaving tens of thousands of travelers still trying to get home after Christmas. In remembrance, the world of sports and politics both mourning two major losses. The NFL announcing the death of John Madden, the one-time player turned Hall of Fame coach turned broadcasting legend and video game icon, passing away at 85 years old. We'll look back at his extraordinary career. And Harry Reid, the Senate giant who helped pass the Affordable Care Act, leading the Democratic Party for more than a decade, has died after a battle with cancer. He was 82. More on his life and legacy on Capitol Hill and beyond. And New Year, same trends? Like it or not, 2022 is shaping up to look a lot like 2021. From the COVID crisis to supply chain shortages and working from home. We're going to check in with a trend spotter for what else we can expect as we ring in the new year. Plus, the one word she says will sum up 2022. Good to have you with us. It's not a word, but rather a number that's making headlines this morning. NBC News confirms 53 million COVID cases have been reported in the U.S. since the pandemic began nearly 2 years ago. Here's another sobering number. The 7-day average for daily cases in the U.S. topped 262,000 on Tuesday. That's a record. The previous record was set back in January. The CDC is also making a major adjustment to its estimate of how quickly the Omicron variant is spreading. According to the agency's new estimates, Omicron accounts for 59% of all cases, down from 73% 2 weeks ago. Some health experts are also wary of the CDC's new guidance to shorten isolation periods for people with COVID, with kids headed back to school and hospitalization rates on the rise. Some worry the new policy may lead to yet another serious wave. We have our team of experts standing by to break this all down for us, including NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton, with a closer look at COVID and college campuses, and Dr. Amina Akhtar with more on COVID in Missouri. But first, NBC's Heidi Presbella joins us from Washington. So Heidi, concerning stat out from New York City this morning, a 400% increase in hospitalization rates among kids. New York right now is the epicenter for the spread of Omicron. What is Mayor Bill de Blasio saying about the plan that he's put in place to try and keep kids in school, especially since so many kids do remain unvaccinated?
Some pretty concerning numbers, Joe, but the mayor's saying that despite that, they are going to try to keep kids safe.
You okay there? Do we have to name it? Paul? I just think of the alien.
Yeah.
Kind of looks similar.
A little bit. Oh, I felt like everything just ripped out of me in one shot.
Not the pee, goddammit.
No, I'm just I feel good now. I know in a few minutes I'm going to start bloating from the new meal.
I'm about to pee on the floor.
Oh, wait. Let me go spray poopy on.
Oh, yeah. Forgot we got that.
really works.
Oh, yes.
Definitely need a cigarette, but after that, it feels like I just got.
Against someone for their political views is already legal in America. You can get kicked off of Twitter and Facebook for being a conservative. You can be banned from payment processing platforms like WePay and blocked from raising money on GoFundMe. You can even be removed from the internet, like we saw with Parler. So what's the next step for political discrimination in this country? So if Canada is any indication of what's next, it's being denied mortgages for your political views.
It's just about the nature of the business altogether. Because the bank has been, I'll be blunt with you, the bank has been, trying to pry away from certain, clients where they're kind of out there in the media and very strong opinionated, which is your business in a way. So we're just clearing some internal hurdles to make sure that the bank is okay to that kind of onboard you as a client internally.
Spoiler alert, we did not clear those hurdles, even though I've done all of my personal banking at that same Royal Bank branch for decades. Ezra Levant is the man you just saw in that clip. He was speaking to a banker from the Royal Bank of Canada. He's the founder of Rebel News and says he was denied a mortgage because of his conservative views. Ezra Levant joins us now. So Ezra, in the video clip we played, it wasn't quite clear if you were being denied because of your political views or if it's just because you're a media personality who has a public presence. What was it? It was very clearly our views. I had several discussions.
Wait, what?
I have to go tomorrow.
No, not you. I was talking about the thing.
I had several discussions with that mortgage officer. I just want to make it clear that our mortgage application was financially sound. If he would have said it wasn't financially sound, I probably would have believed him. But he was candid with me. I call him a sort of whistleblower. He said it was our opinions because Rebel News, the news site that I run, has conservative opinions. And the Royal Bank is Canada's largest bank. I should say they do a lot of business in communist China. And I wonder if they have brought some of that social credit approach they have to use in China to Canada. And by the way, they have thousands of clients in the United States too. And discriminating against people based on inappropriate grounds, if you're a bank, is called redlining. And that's illegal in the States. I only caught this because this banker at the local branch really wanted to give me the mortgage. He said he was fighting against the head office and that it was the head office that vetoed this mortgage application. I think social credit, as they call it in China, or cancel culture, is here in North America. Banks in America too. Remember, Royal Bank is in America as well. So I don't know if you know this, Ezra, but I was on the Financial Services Committee when I was in Congress, and under the Obama era, they had a program called Operation Choke Point, where the federal regulators, the FDIC. So I don't know if you know this, Ezra, but I was on the Financial Services Committee when I was in Congress, and
A little bit.
It kind of carried in here.
Oh.
You okay, baby? That's what happens when you eat stuff off the floor. You know this. You poor fucking stupid baby. Why don't you listen? Someone has to fucking make sure you're not gonna die. Daisy. Once he gets up, we're gonna have to bolt for a walk.
put you all the way over there. Huh? I say he'll put you over there. You're so far away. You're so far away, Benji. Huh? I'm sorry, baby.
See if we can give you some of that gel stuff. It'll make you poop more.
He's up.
Yeah, it's just these bucket eat something back, so what the fucking angriest thing. Flush them out. No treats, no please. But somebody inside, they don't do that anymore. Not eat food.
Do I get my legs? And somebody just lost over $1,000 cow. Yeah.
I'll remember to get relaxed home. Excuse me? Excuse me? Sir? I'm terribly sorry about this. Sorry. You'll feel better though.
Oh, she's gonna. The cow's gonna die in the street.
Oh my god.
She died of a heart attack.
Ow, my finger.
Under the Obama era, they had a program called Operation Choke Point, where the federal regulators, the FDIC, would put pressure on banks to stop banking gun dealers, smoke shops, small dollar lenders. And in essence, if you can't bank, and you know this as well, if you can't bank, if you can't cash checks, if you can't process credit card payments, you can't do business in America. So the power of banking to just live your life is incredibly powerful if you can't access it, right?
Yeah, and in Canada, we have far fewer banks, and they have much more power. The Royal Bank is the largest bank in Canada. I should tell you, there's a revolving door between Justin Trudeau's Liberals and the Royal Bank. Trudeau's first ambassador to China was a senior RBC Bank executive. He was awful, by the way. Trudeau just appointed another RBC executive to the Senate. So I think it's a political, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Rebel News is hated by Justin Trudeau. We're one of the few conservative media in this country. Trudeau's made that clear. It wouldn't surprise me if the bank was doing him a favor, considering how many favors he does them. They received, Canadian banks received enormous bailouts over the years. They get get tremendous privileges, even more than U.S. banks get. And I think this is a political quid pro quo. You don't want your banks to have a political criteria when it comes to mortgages. I mean, really, even convicted murderers, when they get out of jail, are allowed to get a bank account. Imagine punishing conservatives and deplatforming them. I think this is a scandal. I only found out about it by accident because I had an honest local banker. I bet you this is more prevalent than we think. And how would you know if they never actually had a whistleblower tell you?
Ezra, you're 100% right. But what's interesting with banking is that they need the government. So in the States, banks have FDIC insurance, right? So if banks want to be political, well, politics can be political as well. And if you want to take away woke banks' FDIC insurance, or you can take away their charter, they're chartered by the federal government or by a state government. Those are all tools that conservatives have when they get into leadership to address this wokeism that's happening in the banking industry. We're going to continue to follow this. It is going to be, I think, an increasing phenomenon across the country. So, Ezra, thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Any news for that matter.
Tim, what's on your radar?
Yesterday, Twitter deplatformed Dr. Robert Malone in yet another long line of scientists, doctors, and experts who've been silenced during this pandemic.
Corey Arsenault expects more of his employees to start calling in sick.
All it takes is for one person in here all of a sudden to be a close contact, and then it just, the dominoes keep on dropping.
Concerned workplaces will be debilitated by exposures. PEI is changing its public health orders. If there's an outbreak at an essential workplace, employees who are close contacts can stay on the job if they test negative.
When they are not at work, they are to be in isolation. This policy is not without risk and will be used sparingly.
Staffing issues are cropping up all over the place. WestJet has canceled 15% of its flights next month, saying many employees are out sick. In Manitoba, more than 400 healthcare workers have been infected in the last week. Winnipeg's health authority has asked employees with COVID symptoms who test negative to come to work.
We see that as a way of supporting the healthcare system in a safe way.
Nova Scotia is asking for volunteers to start giving boosters to everyone 30 and up.
We need some help. We need more people. So if you're a retired nurse or doctor and are able to fill shifts vaccinating Nova Scotians, please put your hand up.
In Saskatchewan, as Omicron spreads, isolation rules are changing.
We're going to have more people that are self-isolating. And ultimately, that's going to have an impact on the services that we need to continue to offer, not only in our healthcare system, but also in our communities.
So people who test positive but are vaccinated and don't have symptoms only have to isolate for 5 days, not 10. Some worry all these changing measures could spell trouble.
There's no simple way to manage this, but honestly, with Omicron, it's inevitable that there will be outbreaks, large outbreaks that will occur.
Dr. Alex Wong says Omicron is quickly becoming a dangerous balancing act to stop the virus's rapid spread while keeping society afloat. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Toronto.
Obviously, we just fucking carry.
Good afternoon. My name is Marla McGinnis, and I'll be your moderator for today's news conference. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the Honorable Tim Houston, Premier of the Province of Nova Scotia, and Dr. Robert Strang, Chief Medical Officer of Health for Nova Scotia. Go ahead, Premier.
Thank you, Marla. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start with the current COVID situation in Nova Scotia. As of today, 25 patients are in hospital, admitted due to COVID, and 3 of them are in the ICU, so 25 and 3. And as expected, our cases remain high. Today, we're reporting 522 cases. Over the last 2 weeks, we've reported almost 7,600 cases, 7,594 cases over the last 2 weeks. But thankfully, like other jurisdictions, we're not experiencing the level of hospitalization and severe illness with Omicron that we've seen with previous variants. And the public health team is watching the hospitalizations very closely, as those 25 patients in hospital and 3 in the ICU are key indicators. In previous waves, most of us probably only heard of someone getting COVID, but right now in Nova Scotia, pretty much every one of us knows someone who has had it, or maybe they've had it themselves. It's different this time because the variant is extremely contagious. It's not just here. It's everywhere that this is happening. Look at what's happening around the world. Over the last 2 days, France, Britain, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Greece, and many others have all registered record numbers of new cases. Other provinces are also hitting records. The reality is Omicron is everywhere, and the return to 0 case days is a ways away. This naturally raises anxiety because we have been conditioned to fear COVID. And we must continue to have a healthy dose of fear when it comes to this virus. However, while Omicron is obviously extremely contagious, the evidence to date is that it is generally far less severe. So for those 25 families, COVID is certainly still severe, but 25 cases out of almost 7,600 total cases is consistent with data that we're seeing around the world, in that severe cases are the exception and certainly not the rule. Please keep this in mind as we talk about testing, boosters, and other issues. And we'll get to those issues. But before going to those issues, I do want to tip my hat to the many Nova Scotians who did not get time off this holiday season, including Dr. Strang and the entire team at Public Health, including the teams in the labs, the folks that are testing sites, those that are doing vaccinations, and everyone across the healthcare system and in between. Many of them did not get any time off over these holidays. I want to recognize them and I want to thank them. When you think of the number of cases and add in their close contacts, tens of thousands of Nova Scotians have been impacted by the virus over just the last few weeks. This has put pressure on so many organizations, and you only need to look at the situation with the airlines to see the wrinkle effect of isolation and illness. Our healthcare professionals in the healthcare system are no different. This is a massive challenge in a system that is already severely understaffed. Our people are stretched thin. They're giving it their all. They're going above and beyond. So now we, as Nova Scotians, must match their determination and do our part so that they can do their job. This means some changes. No one likes change, but the world has changed since the beginning of the pandemic. The variants have changed, the vaccinations have been a game changer, and now we must also accept the reality in front of us, and that means change. First, it means that each of us has to take more personal responsibility. With stretched resources, we must ask Nova Scotians to take more personal responsibility. It's just that simple. You will see this in the way we're managing COVID cases to get at a more of a self-management approach for the less severe cases. You will see this in the back-to-school plan. You will see it in the rapid testing plan. You will just see that we're asking each of you to be more accountable. And I have faith in each and every one of us, every Nova Scotian, to step up for their family and step up for their community. Specifically, if you're sick and you test positive on a rapid test, you have COVID. Take personal responsibility for letting your contacts know, or let your school principal know, let your coworkers know, and of course, isolate. So we ask you to take more personal responsibility in a number of ways, and we'll talk more about that. But it also means we have to shift the focus to boosting. And that means a bit of a shift away from what I would call confirmation testing. The team is working hard to once again stand up additional booster clinics and add capacity to the system. We know being vaccinated protects people, especially against severe illness, and we know the booster provides increased protection. I know everyone is eager to get their booster shot, but on boosters, we're sticking with the NACI recommendation that the booster is most
What is this making that sound? You want to watch someone get hit by a car? Not really. Thanks, though. Have I reached my cap of like Quebec news I'm allowed to watch? Holy shit, what is this?
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's Jasper and Dylan here, and in today's video, we're talking again about Bill C-223. However, I'm going to show you a previous bill that was introduced in the House of Commons before actually Bill C-223, which is an act to develop a national framework for a guaranteed livable basic income. Since this particular bill is the second bill that was introduced in the House of Commons proposing this notion of introducing a livable basic income, and before this, there was Bill C-273. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at Bill C-273. What was that bill proposing? How is Bill C-223 different from that bill? And we're going to take a look at the speech of the person that introduced that bill in the House of Commons. Now, let's start off today's video by firstly understanding exactly what is Bill C-273 and when was it first introduced in the House of Commons. So, as you guys can see on your screen, on February 22nd, 2021, Member of Parliament Julie Zerwitz introduced Bill C-273, our first ever bill towards the National Guaranteed Basic Income. The bill entered the second reading in the House of Commons on June 14th, 2021, and we're going to take a look at the progress on that particular bill just shortly. So, Bill C-273, why is it important? It's step number one for the Canadian government to create a national basic income by answering important questions on how to best design and implement it across Canada. What would this particular bill do? It would require the Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, to create a national strategy for a guaranteed basic income, including potential partnerships with provinces to determine how to best structure and implement this particular notion of a basic income, as well as it includes support for dedicated basic income research, and it sets national standards to guide the design and implementation of basic income across Canada. So that was in regards to what is Bill C-273 before the current bill that is in the House of Commons, Bill C-223. And let's take a look at the progress of that past bill in the House of Commons. So as you guys can see on your screen, it mentions Bill C-273, an act to establish a national strategy for a guaranteed basic income. And this is again from September 23rd, 2020 to August 15th, 2021. So if we take a look at the progress, the first reading of this bill was done on February 22nd, 2021, as you guys can see right over here. However, after that, there was no second reading completed for Bill C-273, the first ever bill introduced with the notion of introducing a guaranteed basic income. And it was just basically dropped after the first reading of the bill in the House of Commons. Now, taking a look at why this bill was dropped in the first place, you guys can see on your screen that Bill C-273 was terminated when the 44th General Federal Election was called on August 15th of 2021. So that was a quick background on Bill C-273, which is the predecessor of the current bill, Bill C-223, that is sitting right now in the House of Commons and that was introduced back in December 16th of 2021. However, still staying on the subject of Bill C-273, the surprising part of this particular bill that even though it was terminated, the Liberal government is the one that introduced this particular bill, and particularly Julie Zerwitz, who is a member of Parliament for Davenport, Toronto. And taking a look at the bio of this member of Parliament, we can see that Julie is the first female member of Parliament for Davenport, elected back in 2015 and re-elected in 2019. Julie was appointed to the influential Standing Committee on Finance and recently introduced Bill C-273, which is the bill that we're discussing today. Now, let's have a look on why this member of Parliament introduced Bill C-273 in the first place and what was her reasoning behind it.
So why am I proposing this private member's bill and why now? Canada's current social welfare system was created in the 1970s, and no matter how many times it's adjusted, still too many Canadians are falling through the cracks. There are literally hundreds of income and support programs for Canadians delivered by dozens of departments and ministries. This complexity means that our current service model misses many of the Canadians most in need, focuses too often on applications and auditing Canadians, and less so on the actual support that they need. So despite these programs and our deliberate efforts to tackle income inequality, it continues to grow. So maybe it's time to review the foundation of our social welfare system and bring it into the 21st century. Perhaps it's time to look at a different service model like guaranteed basic income, one that may simplify our social programs while better delivering support. Another reason for why now is that the world of work is changing faster than ever before. So more workers are shifting to the gig economy. There's more temporary and short-term work and jobs, and many jobs are being eliminated and have been eliminated for a number of years by automation and artificial intelligence. In addition, disruptions in our economy are happening faster and more frequently, leaving many Canadians working harder, longer, and feeling like it's more difficult to get ahead. So all through history, humans have had to adapt to change, and we know how to do this. But we have trouble with transitions, particularly the negative ones, one of which we're going through right now. Our social safety net is not well designed to help Canadians through transitions, so we need a new model, one that does, and one that provides stability to the middle class, to those trapped in the cycle of poverty, and to those in danger of falling into poverty. If someone's struggling to stay above water and has to make decisions about how to survive, one can't be innovative. One's not going to take risks like starting a business or retraining or upskilling. So we need a social welfare system that's more responsive, less complex, more flexible, and is better at managing labor changes, disruptions, and transitions.
Now, that was a quick background on Bill C-273, which is the predecessor of the current bill, Bill C-223, which is the next step for basic income. So even though Bill C-273 was dropped and was terminated because of the 44th general federal election, I thought that you guys should know the background of the current basic income bill, Bill C-223. But that was it for today. Hopefully you did enjoy and found value in the information that I shared today with you guys today. And if you guys did, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not by now. But I'll see you guys on the next video on the tribe.
And it's Dr. Romney. And I want to thank folks everywhere, social media, all these other places. I'm getting these lovely birthday wishes for it. Thank you. This was the year I almost forgot my birthday. Actually, I have a very sick parent and I'm attending to them in the part of the country they live in. So spending most of it in a hospital with her. So On this birthday, I've had a lot of time to think and wanted to sort of almost share a birthday message. First of all, a thank you. I'm at that age where you kind of, like I said, I kind of forgot because of everything that's going on in my life, but you also kind of want to forget. But I thought about, my birthday comes at the end of the year, right? December 30th. And so it's always a strange one because it's right up against New Year's, where everyone's it's these lists about the year and this and that and the other. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be frank with you. This was actually, I can say definitely the worst year of my life. I've never had such a bad year. Amazing things happen in this year. For me, everything is kind of, that could go wrong, kind of did go wrong. However, the part that went right is having a lot of opportunity this year to really punch out the work that myself and my team are doing on narcissism and narcissistic abuse. And it's the first time I'm really starting to see this work take flight. And I'm seeing real changes, not just in individual clients I work with, but I'm seeing how might slowly start to inform how we train therapists, how we get this into workplace settings. The conversation has to keep happening. So I guess to all of you, you've given me a far greater birthday gift than you ever could know, in that you're willing to listen to this and learn from it. And if even one person recovers from me talking on and on this YouTube channel, then my work here is done. That's really all I ever went into this to do. But to go backwards, talk about this year, and I'm hoping this is a message, again, sort of a birthday message to share with you. That feels a little bit narcissistic to say it's a birthday message, but if it suffices to say I'm not going to celebrate it this year, this is sort of the extent of it, is what I learned this year. And I think one of the things I really, really learned this year, and it's a lesson I want to pay forward to survivors, is when I break down this year, the worst year of my life, when I break down the stressors that came my way. And let me tell you, they started pretty much the first week of January of 2021 and went from there. Almost inevitably, they had to do with narcissistic people or narcissistic situations, or toxic people more broadly, and toxic situations. Situations where I felt gaslighted or invalidated or harmed or threatened. And it just kept coming and coming. I think part of it is the nature of the work I do. As you could imagine, it's going to attract people who have interest in this and sometimes just want to come at me in that way. And I thought, isn't this interesting? Because I really thought about it this morning. And I thought, if that had been taken away, if toxic people had been lifted from my life, how much would this year have changed? 100%. Some of the stressors in my life wouldn't have. For example, my parents' illness would have been what it is. But beyond that, other than a few little things like a busted refrigerator and things like that, which didn't even make the top 50 of my problems this year, it was really about difficult people. It was about never really being able to rest. It was about dealing with the phone calls and the text messages and the emails and the HR departments and all of it, and having to deal with it on and on and on. And I recognized when I was doing that, I wasn't doing the things that mattered, right? Working on this channel, working on other writing, working on curricula I'm doing, working on what I'm trying, the treatment plans for the clients I work with, whatever it may be. It meant I wasn't doing that. And my head was pulled out of the game. And when I really took a look back at this year, this terrible, terrible year, I thought, damn it. Like, that's what this does. That's what this shit does. These kinds of people, this kinds of nonsense, and it's beyond nonsense. It's toxic and invalidating and abusive. And I recognize that online spaces have made this all so, so much worse, not just for me, but for everyone. And then I also feel like we are living in the time of sort of, and I've talked about this in a video, sort of narcissism entertainment porn. Like, you can't watch a show where at least a third of the characters aren't majorly narcissistic. On some days I find it entertaining, and on others I think, like, why do the writers keep trying to imbue these narcissists with those bits of virtue? Like, it's frustrating. And I feel like it's around us all the time. The incivility in our world, whether it's road rage, whether it's rage incidents on airplanes, whatever it is we're reading about, it contributes to that. So I thought, okay, as this year ends, and I'll talk about that soon enough when I talk to you about New Year's, what do I hope for? And I'm recognizing, girl, Ramani, you've got to stop. You've got to do what you're telling everyone on this channel to do. Maybe that's my birthday gift to myself, is stop engaging. Start deep techniquing yourself. And while I don't do the defending and all of that as much, I do the engaging sometimes for no other reason but pity. So I got to put that pity down. And as soon as I get a waft of toxic behavior, entitled behavior, difficult behavior, to learn to walk. So maybe the birthday present I'm going to give myself, which is to do that, is something I hope all of you can do as well. I actually sat with my sister and we made a vow to each other after we got into a bit of an argument that we were going to sit together and we were going to block the toxic people on our phone. It took a while and we did it and talked about it today. She's like, it's such an interesting feeling to know that those toxic people can't reach me. So whatever form that takes for any of you, it takes. But I will say, as I do the post-mortem on this last revolution I've made around the sun, this last year of my life, it reminds me that what it is, what I do on this channel, what we talk about, what many of you talk about in your lives, this issue around narcissism and narcissistic abuse, let me be the one to tell you this is all very, very real. Because if somehow I could, almost like you sift stones out of rice or something, like you would put something through a sifter, and I could take what was good out of this year, the stuff that would have remained in that sifter were difficult people, narcissistic people, antagonistic people, and all the things around that. And it wasn't even just people, it was sometimes situations and institutions and systems that just didn't work as we're supposed to and were also abusive. So, to all the good people in my life who stood there by me, watching me and dabbed up a lot of tears this year, thank you. To the team out there that supports me in making these YouTube videos, you know who you are. Thank you, and everyone who watches should thank them too, because they're the ones who technically make this possible. To everyone out there that I love, thank you. Because on my happy birthday, I figured it ain't a birthday. If I've spun around the sun one more time, I better have learned something from this year. And this year, my lesson is I need to take my own medicine. So again, thank you for all the good birthday wishes. Actually, it really is. This is.
We're gonna take a break.
that the minister himself spoke about it in May 2020 and February of this year, as did the Federal Center for Health Education. But that treatment and therapies are up to doctors to decide. They, for their part, expect to see an increasing number of severe cases emerging among people whose lung cancer hasn't yet been recognized.
Time for Derek Williams and a viewer question which won't be all that easy to answer, but it's something I'd want to know if I lost my sense of smell or taste. My daughter had COVID-19 months ago and still hasn't regained her sense of smell or taste. Will they come back? The sense of smell and the sense of taste are closely intertwined, and losing them is a very common symptom of COVID-19. Several studies have shown that the loss of smell or changes to the sense of smell in particular are an issue for at least half the people who get the disease, probably more. Sometimes it's the only symptom that develops in a patient who's otherwise asymptomatic. Although there's still a lot that we don't know about what causes the loss of taste, there is evidence indicating that the loss of smell is likely linked not to the virus infecting the olfactory neurons that carry signals from the nose in the direction of the brain, but instead to its infecting cells called sustentacular cells, which play a supporting role in the lining of the nasal cavity. According to an overview of studies that I read, the loss of taste and the loss of smell usually occurs very suddenly at the onset of COVID-19 and often begins to slowly return after around 3 to 5 days. Many patients had pretty much regained the senses completely within a few weeks, but a significant percentage, maybe as many as 1 in 20 people, they continue to have major deficits even many months later. So your daughter's condition is not all that rare, Inez. If the sensory loss is persistent, a lot of experts, including ones that we've had here on the COVID-19 special, they recommend what's called olfactory training. It involves repeated, targeted exposure to specific scents on a daily basis. And it's helped a lot of patients recover at least some sensory perception. Nice to have you along. Stay safe and see you again soon.
Well, welcome to today's talk, Tuesday, the 28th of December. I hope you have a This content is made possible by individuals like you. Become a supporting member and access our growing library of exclusive content. Learn more at academyofideas.com/members. The state takes the place of God. The socialist dictatorships are religions, and state slavery is a form of worship. Since the birth of totalitarianism in the 20th century, much has been written about this form of rule, and millions have read George Orwell's depiction of it in the classic novel 1984. But what is often overlooked is that totalitarianism is more than just a political system. It is a fanatical religion, and this religion is spreading across the globe with a ferocity not seen since the mid-20th century. In this video, we are going to investigate the religious nature of totalitarianism in the recognition that we must know our enemy if we are to defeat it. Shortly after fleeing Nazi Germany, the The political scientist Waldemar Gurian wrote the following: "The totalitarian movements that have arisen after the First World War are basically religious movements. Their aim is not only to change political and social institutions, but also to remodel the nature of man and society." Totalitarianism shares many characteristics with organized religions. For example, Christianity and Islam are built on the belief of a future golden age that will be ushered in with the second coming of Christ. Totalitarian movements share a similar idea, but instead of a god or prophet that transforms the world, totalitarian movements are built on the belief that man can recreate the world, and a new golden age can be constructed under the direction of the all-powerful and all-controlling state. In consequence of the decline of Christianity, writes Carl Jung, the religious projections have largely fallen away from the divine figures and have necessarily settled in the human sphere. The modern, enlightened intellect cannot imagine anything greater than those tin gods with totalitarian pretensions who call themselves state. This belief that it is possible for a centralized, all-powerful state to radically change society for the better is why Hannah Arendt wrote that totalitarianism is not a government in any traditional sense, but a movement. In the totalitarian movements of the past, this golden age was envisioned to be one of racial purity, or a communist utopia of equality, efficiency, and prosperity for all. Today, this totalitarian golden age is one in which mankind exists in harmony with Mother Earth, or in its more extreme form, an age where man merges with machine and transcends biological limitations of disease and death. Needless to say, totalitarian utopias never come to fruition, for as Karl Popper warned, the attempt to make heaven on earth invariably produces hell. These utopian visions do, however, succeed in stimulating the religious enthusiasm of the masses, and totalitarians use these visions to convince the population that the utopian end justifies any and all means, be it mass surveillance, censorship, widespread oppression, mass imprisonment, or even the extermination of groups of people, or as Barry Goldwater explains, those who seek absolute power, even though they seek it to do what they regard as good, are simply demanding the right to enforce their own version of heaven on earth. And let me remind you, they are the very ones who always create the most hellish tyrannies. Absolute power does corrupt, and those who seek it must be suspect and must be opposed. In the totalitarian religion, there are the chosen people and there are the sinners. The chosen ones naively believe in the possibility of a paradisal future and the ability of the state to be the vehicle to effectuate this transformation. They are the pious who follow the state's commands with unquestioning obedience. The sinners are the non-believers. They are the heretics who stand in the way of the so-called greater good and prevent the forward march of history. To use an analogy offered by the Polish philosopher Zygmunt Bauman, the totalitarians see the earth as a garden to which they are anointed to cultivate, and the sinners as the weeds that must be exterminated to bring about the full flowering of the totalitarian utopia. All totalitarian visions of society as garden define parts of the social habitat as human weeds. Like all other weeds, they must be segregated, contained, prevented from spreading, removed and kept outside the society boundaries. If all these means prove insufficient, they must be killed. But removing the weeds is only one part of the totalitarian religious movement. The remaining citizens must be turned into totalitarian true believers, who inwardly assent to a life of strict conformity and obedience to authority. For in totalitarianism, the mere outward display of compliance is
already seen here, so I'm sending Gene over to crematorium.
Right. So Hugo is coming over to talk to me.
What?
Don't be mad. I think I can talk him out of it. All this.
And when you say talk him out of it, what does that mean? Is Hugo gonna be our new dad?
Oh,
Just checking. Maybe I should help you set the mood. Put out some candles.
ooh, candles.
Unbelievable.
Bonkers delivery service.
Why'd you ever get engaged to that guy anyway?
I was young, and my parents liked him because he always did the dishes.
Not bad.
Also, he used to.
What?
He happened to be an excellent kisser.
An excellent kisser?
Yeah, he was very soft, and he didn't have a lot of moisture.
Like some people. You think I'm a bad kisser?
No.
Oh yeah, well how about this? Are you sweating?
No.
Is that my saliva?
Don't be mad.
No, I'm not. Not at all. I better go.